Hi everyone, welcome to We Are Feel, episode 4, part 2 of Relationship in Our 20s. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for catching up with part 1. I hope you have enjoyed. And we are looking forward to interacting with you more, learning more about your relationships in your 20s. And so I would want to say thank you also for our guests, Prince, James, and Gina. We are going to be learning more about our relationships and their relationships and what lessons they have taken from what they have been through. And so so let's dig deep. Over to you, Rita.
Perfect. So now that we've covered that part of where people met their people or their persons throughout the course of their dating life, not that it has ended, but we're going to go on to the next, which I want to combine. So I want to know throughout these relationships, situationships, or whatever, which or what has been the biggest hurdle you faced, and then what was the lesson from that hurdle that you faced. So I don't know who wants to go first, but I can go so you guys can prepare. Yeah, iko sawa?
Yeah, that's okay.
Great. You have the flow.
All right. Thank you. So the biggest hurdle I faced in a relationship is trying to figure out who I am in a relationship. I think that was my biggest hurdle, because when you're in a relationship where there is no kind of companionship, or there's one person doing more than the other person, or one person being more than the other person, there's a sense of losing your identity or your sense of self in a relationship. And I think that was the biggest hurdle for me, coming to terms that I've really gone far away from who I am or who I was, and not being able to easily go back, and realizing I need to do a lot of work to go back and identify who I am or who I was before I let the relationship consume me. So I think that for me was the biggest issue, trying to now come back to my sense of self and be like, this hurt you, and this hurt you because of this and this and this, and it's not your fault. You're not less of a person because the other person did a certain thing, or you're not less deserving because this happened. But now finding worthiness within myself was the biggest lesson that I learned from that challenge that I faced at that time in that relationship. Cool. And I'm going to pass it over to who? Let's see. Who do I feel like attacking? Gina.
Why me? The biggest hurdle I've ever faced in a relationship is accepting that we're two different entities. When we began, James alisema he learned about relationships from books and Daniel Steele, how they make everything look perfect. So the guy is the knight in shining armor, no matter what knots, they just end up together. Nowadays, it's juicy, yes, but accepting someone else's mistakes, that's why I said I consider that as a healthy relationship. I'm still in the process of learning it. So I used to, the biggest hurdle basically was just you're your own person. I'm my own person, but I have this perception of you that if you change anything, I would just be like, no, this is not what I signed up for. I'd walk out. So currently, that's what I'm trying to learn, that I am my own person. I have my own flaws. And like I said earlier, everyone has baggage. You have to start unloading the baggage. You have to be comfortable with each other. Yeah, that was the biggest hurdle that I faced. But so far, I'm learning from it. So yeah, that was my biggest hurdle. So I'll pass it to the next person.
Thank you, Gina. That's really insightful. Hey, we have so many lessons, you guys. Mlea, on to you.
Wow. Let me see. relationships are just I usually feel like this conversation and this topic is quite very deep and very sensitive. But for me, the biggest hurdle that I've faced so far, I think, is accepting that. And I think you've said, but not a bit different, is accepting that you can have all the feelings and emotions towards a specific person, and that is not enough to actually have them commit to a relationship, and that also just having that connection does not mean it does not hold so much water than when someone makes a commitment to actually act on it. And that there's no amount of podcasts you listen to or books you'll read, whether those are like novels or like, self-help books, you'll read about relationships that will prepare you for someone. So I think those those two have been one of the biggest lessons I have learned, and mostly recently. Like, it doesn't matter how much feelings you have towards a certain somebody, sometimes it might never actualize. And it's now for you to accept that. And there's no need, even if they apologize, and even if they, even if they try to give an explanation why it can't, and all those things, you're the only one who can pick up yourself and like move on from that. Yeah. And also, there's nothing will ever prepare you for a relationship. Nothing nothing will ever prepare you for a certain person in your future. Yes, you can have things, they're more like tools that you can use, but it will never prepare you for an exact person. You can't listen to a podcast and become the perfect person for someone, but it can give you tools that you can actually learn and take with. Yeah.
Oof, that well is very deep, you guys. That is a very deep well to dig into. But that's also very insightful. There is literally, you can't prepare enough for another human being. So that's very insightful, Leah. Thank you for that. I'm going to pass it over to James.
Rita, wow. No, how do we come back from Leah's take? Anywho, I'll try. Now, on my side, hurdle in relationships and my biggest lesson. My biggest, and I think what I'm still struggling with, and I realize actually that I'm struggling with it even in other aspects of life, is confrontation. I hate confrontation. I don't know how I would phrase my hate for confrontation. I hate confrontation, and I hate, no, I hate confrontation, and I fear serious moment. Why? I have no idea. It might be advised from my lived experience from a pretty young age, but I can't really place a finger on it. So all through my relationships, one thing that I usually avoid, I go out of my way to avoid, is confrontation. And the reason as to why I avoid confrontation, and that now advises the lesson, is I hate being vulnerable. If I'm confronting you, I'll have to face something. I'll have to face either my mistake, or I'll have to point out where you've hurt me. Because you see, for me to confront you, you must have done something to me. And I have to confront you on it, which means I have to give a part of me. I have to let you in on who I am. So I'll have to tell you what you did, or rather what you said, or rather how you approached something. It hurt me. Either that, or I'll have to face up to my mistake, which is you're confronting me because of something I did to you, and I have to face it. So I usually try to avoid, and I realize that from avoiding, it doesn't make things perfect. If anything, it becomes a wound that you've plastered an elastoplast on, which means it's not healing. It's not healing because you're not treating it. You're not confronting it. You're not talking about it. So over time, you find, one, the relationship will get into a stagnation phase. You'll get into that bulb moment. Let me go with that particular comparison. You get into that bulb moment where you just exist, because you've been covering up these small wounds to a point. Now we are going to surgery, and a part of you has to be amputated. Be it a serious part that will bring the relationship to an end, or it might be something that you might not recover from. So those are that's my take. That's rather my lived experience in the hurdles that I've faced in relationships and in the lessons learned. It's good to be vulnerable. So over time, I'm practicing it. Hopefully with time, and time will tell. I hope to overcome it. But the current relationship is pretty good. It's pretty good. It's bringing me out of that cocoon, and I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. It's still it's I'm still afraid. There's still that fear. There's that small you that needs to be to be protected from from the harsh realities. But over time, it's also a growth moment. So yeah, thank you. Back to you, Rita.
Thank you so much. I think that was really deep. And one of the things you've really highlighted is the challenges or the hurdles you face within a relationship remind you that you're very human and you're allowed to make human mistakes. And as human as you are, you're also allowed to bounce back. So I really love that concept. And also talking about the baby, like trying to protect the young you, because I feel relationships also help you go back to the young person that you are, who didn't heal or who got very hurt, and trying to nurture your young you to now become a better version of you. So I think that's very fundamental. Thank you so much for deepening the well that Leah had already started. We really appreciate deep conversations. So that's very insightful. Thank you so much. I'm going to pass it over to Prince. Yes, over to you.
Okay, thanks, Rita. It's interesting to be the last person, because you get to hear the things that other people have said, and wow, you guys are oozing wisdom, you know. Leah took it away with nothing can prepare you for a human being. But this podcast can try, you know. So I guess anyone listening to this podcast is learning.
Follow our lessons.
Yeah,
Labda we prepare you for us.
yeah, maybe. But I also really appreciate what James has said, and also being very vulnerable and very candid with your experiences is very inspiring. And all the best as you go on in this journey. So I guess for me, the thing that I struggled with most is making peace with the imperfections. Because, you know, I'm a kind of guy sometimes who can be a perfectionist. So let's say if I'm painting a house color white, and then I've painted, I've finished, and then in the last minute, a dark spot appears, maybe a spot of dirt. I could feel like I want to destroy that house and start again, because I want everything to be perfect. And then this was translating itself in some of my relationships, where I always expected that a healthy relationship is one that you don't argue. So everything is good, you're okay. So if you argue, it's like, wow, this one is now going to end. You know, what can we do? You know, you keep calling a person a million times because I don't know of some small thing that happened. But I'm over time, of course, these things come with experience and maturity. You realize that being in a relationship does not mean not arguing. It just means that even when you argue, the fundamental reasons that you are together, they overcome that which is troubling both of you. And even if you argue, you know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So over time, I guess this has been something that I've come to appreciate, that not always that you will be on the same page with your partner, and it's okay to disagree. And even alluding to what James said, sometimes you also need to speak your mind. If someone does something that is not cool, sometimes we as men, we may feel that, I don't know, society at the moment is like, you should just calm down and keep, suppress your things because they may be too much. But let's not forget to speak our minds, because the other person is not a robot. They don't know what we're thinking. You have to communicate and tell them what you like, what you don't like. Otherwise, they may do things without their knowledge. So it's important to speak it out, even when maybe the other person won't like it. But that's the beauty of a healthy relationship, where you can just be yourself and say what you feel. But over and above saying what, the how you say it is important. So you have to choose a good time to say it. You have to choose the right way. If you're giving someone some tough piece of information, don't bash them. You can start with what they're doing right. Tell them, hey, babe, man, I really like that you've been doing this and this. But there's this thing that you can improve on, something of the sort.
Diplomacy.
Well, Prince, give us examples. I think there's an example you're alluding to.
You don't wake up in the morning guns blazing.
Yeah, like you're usually like this, even you always you do. Those two words, never and always. Be careful with them. Yeah, because they might erase. They might make someone feel like this is how you feel 24/7, and maybe it's just the use of a wrong word. You can't tell someone you never care about me, or you never listen to me, or tell them they listen to you sometimes, but there's this one time where they did this and you didn't like it, or it made you feel this way, and stuff like that. So I think that's how I'd summarize it. And back to you, Rita.
Thank you, Prince.
Just to add on to that, I think that's a very healthy way to communicate that, where it's not you are, is this action that you did made me feel this way, not that you made me, you did, it's there's this thing that you did, there's this action that you did that didn't really sit well with me. And I think that's a very healthy way of communicating something that hurt you, or also something that you disagree with. It's not about the person, because I know a lot of relationships really sometimes distort our sense of self. When we are there, or when we leave, we start wondering, what's the problem with us? What's the issue? But if you're able to be in a healthy relationship, that this clear or good way in terms of how communication is done, it's action-based, and not always pointing into that person and you are bad, and like giving them an identity. I think that's a very healthy way, and I think it's something that, it's a learning process.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if you make the wrong turn of maybe saying you did this, go back and apologize. Because I think a healthy relationship allows you to make mistakes and still go back and say, maybe I communicated wrongly, but this is how this situation made me feel. So that's really insightful.
Rita,
thank you.
Before we close, okay. So regarding the statement Leah said, that when you grow up, the relationship that you see, it actually impacts. Say, like in my perspective, all through life, I've associated relationships with perfection, to a point where my older siblings, where they would get into relationships, bad relationships, you don't see a flag when it's waving at your face. We are the ones who see it. It got me scared to start dating, because I wouldn't want to be in such a scenario. So I just stay by myself, to a point where I got comfortable being single, that the thought of dating was just like, no, thank you. I'm comfortable. I'm okay. So currently, my only statement I'd say is I'm just scared to open up. So relationships and me, we are sitting on the same seat, but on two corners. It's on its side. I am on my side. So It's a learning process. Plus,
Yeah.
like Leah said, you can never be trained how to understand people. You cannot. This is not a class on its own. So yeah, that's a very big thing for me at the moment. So yeah, no.
I think I'm at the same boat. I feel like I'm also in a place where I feel the fact personally I'm a person who likes, and that's why I've said like there's no amount of reading or podcasts you can listen, because I'm a person who likes preparing myself for things, and I feel like relationships are those one of the things that I cannot fully prepare myself for. And there's, as much as you can take lessons from other relationships, you'll still have things that you need to learn wherever you are, and that unpredictability sometimes, and mostly in terms of like how things are currently. This Nairobi,
Canairo.
right? Yeah.
Nairo.
And so you're more guarded than you are free to explore. You're more, oh my God, okay, so there's these things that are happening, things have really, really changed from how dating was until now. And so, things are becoming a bit more difficult when it comes to approaching relationships. I think it's important to keep positive because you're meant for connections, you're meant for communities.
Yeah.
And so I think keeping that in mind would help, maybe elevate some of the unpredictability or the fear that, you might end up into something that would end up bringing you behind, because relationships have so much power in them that they can bring you down. The same way you took yourself up, they can bring you down in a minute. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's very insightful, guys. And I think even borrowing from how you grow up or even how we will raise our potential babies, I hope we will be in spaces where we can very well define for them what it means to be in a healthy relationship, in a fulfilling relationship, but to also work on yourself, to prepare yourself for that healthy relationship. So I hope we can also take that away from that part of the conversation. As we move forward, I have a question for the guys. So James and Prince. So Leah, the question around safety, like, have you ever felt unsafe in your relationship? So James and Prince, as a guy, because women, as ladies, women or whatever, we are constantly, like, the society is never 100% safe for us. When you walk in the streets, somebody can just do something and it will trigger you and just ruin your day. So have you ever felt unsafe in your relationship, in your romantic relationships? And what did that unsafety look like? Like, what defined that unsafety? Was it maybe physical or emotional or something like that? If you're free to talk about it, that is. Crickets.
I think I could start. And it's a good question, because it's something that is usually directed to the ladies more. This question is usually addressed to the ladies more, and people forget the dudes. So while for the ladies, the physical safety risk is high, for men, it's the emotional safety risk that is high. Because sometimes you may be very vulnerable with your partner. You tell them intimate things about you, maybe your fears, maybe the things you struggle with, maybe even things to do with your upbringing that are tough. Mm-hmm. And if this person is not a good human being, they will use this to put you down. So let's say you end up in an argument, maybe you you didn't leave the toilet seat the way it's supposed to be. And then someone goes like, yeah, that's why your whole family abandoned you. Okay, that's a joke. I'm just kidding. It's just a hypothetical example. But you get the point, yeah? So someone could look for instances where when things are not happening right in your relationship, by virtue of them having so much information about you, they might use that to attack you as a person. In fact, in the logic of argument, it's called ad hominem, attack on the person, where you're debating with a person, hey, you feel this person has killed you with points, you're like, I even knew you are fat. How can you speak like some people who don't have points will use
Pure
things like
destruction.
this.
They get personal.
Personal manner. So I guess just to sum it up, because I know we're running out of time, as a dude, sometimes you can meet a toxic lady, and this toxic lady can use her words to pierce your heart. And men are not very good sometimes at fighting the word battle. You know, what nature has instilled on us is the physical strength. And maybe now you don't want to pursue that because it's not healthy at all, it's not legal, it's not right. So you can be suffering there without any way of defending yourself. And it's also a reason sometimes men fear opening up, because you fear that someone can use that information to put you down. So I'd put this as the answer to the question you've just posed. Over to you, James.
Wow.
Have you been boxed? Sorry, I make a joke, by the way. I'm sorry.
It's all cool. It's all cool, Prince. Actually, more or less, Prince has said everything. For guys, it's okay. There are those instances where ladies get physical on their significant others, but majorly for guys, the fear that we have, or rather our insecurities, are more or less emotional. And the funny thing with guys is that we can handle everything else. We can handle stress. We can handle hardships financially. We can handle pain. We can handle illness, but to a point. There is this man flu. The man flu puts everyone down. As long as you're a man, you get a man flu, you're down. But if you are suffering from cancer, you are strong. You can't even go to the hospital. I know it doesn't make sense. But for us, our insecurities, or rather our attack, majorly comes from the emotional angle. And funny enough, I don't know if it's the upbringing. I don't know if it has been ingrained in us since we were born, but we also don't know how to deal with emotional issues. If something gets emotional, we are out the door. Actually, one would rather check out and go face people who are fighting physically and try to untangle them rather than deal with this emotional stress. And that's why over time you might find men will end up seeking physical pain just to numb the emotional pain. And so they'll seek out the outlet of alcohol, drugs, maybe self-harm and all that, just to numb the emotional pain. On my part, on my lived experience, the nearest I came to a physical altercation with a lady, it was majorly in a club setting. And apparently I was on the wrong. And then there were some bottles. Apparently I was on the wrong. I didn't know, up to date, I don't know if I was on the wrong. But there were some bottles thrown around. And what hurt me most was the beer that was spilled because I had paid for it.
Wow, that is such a dude thing to say.
Oh my God.
But that is as far as not feeling secure in a relationship as has been for me, rather. I've never gotten into a place that I felt abused. And I also think this informs my earlier comment on my avoidance of being vulnerable to a relationship, because I have to open up. And as Prince said, opening up to a dude, it's a lot goes into it. Like, I really have to think through. And once I open up, our only limit is when we open up, we open to one person. We open up to one person and we tell them everything. So you're carrying rather the basket with all our eggs in it. If you drop that basket, I'm done. If I hear that story with somebody else, if you use it against me, I'm done. So it takes time to open up, but once we open up, like you have all the weapons you can use against it. Yeah. So to a guy, that's my lived experience on matters abusive situations.
Okay.
Oh wow, you guys.
There's something I have regarding the safety. There's a book I read. There's a book I read about the female brain. So there's a quote that I remember when you said emotional damage, like the TikTok clip, emotional damage. There's this part I read that guys, when they open up, like ladies, we are wired, rather conditioned to like, yes, we will be there for you. We feel your pain, but we're supposed to be open-minded about it. But in this instance, it was like it was a spouse partners ish. You comfort your partner in a sad situation, but you do not expect this guy to be in that emotional state for long. Like we associate that with ladies, but when we see it in regards to a man, it's kind of, it's not normal. So we need to normalize that. Like if you're sad, you can cry. This is a safe space. So yeah, regarding the emotion part, even we ladies have to be open-minded about it. The same way we'd expect to just be there and just be numb, or rather just sulk for like a week. The guy is also validated to sulk for a week, and then after that you pick up yourself, or rather we pick up yourself, and then we get back to it. But even guys are allowed to be emotional, and we are supposed to be there emotionally to support you and to understand. So yeah, that's the point. That's the part I read, and it stuck with me.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's absolutely amazing, Gina. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So looking at time, I want to wrap it up, and I want to give you guys a chance to maybe express passing words or passing wisdom. So you can cap it in a few words. Just what would be your advice to anybody pursuing a relationship, anybody in a relationship, whichever stage you are in? What would you like to advise somebody that you would have wanted to be advised? So short words. Let's finish. Let's wrap it up. Leah, you can start.
I think for me, it's just saying whether or not in a relationship, I think one of the most important things is to start having that relationship with yourself first, as a way to be in a relationship. Because I think for me, in the season I'm in that season, I don't know whether I'm working towards a relationship, but I'm very intentional about my own self and my own relationship with myself, to the extent that I'm taking myself out, I'm taking myself to dates and stuff like that. And so I think no matter where you are, you can start the process of having that relationship with yourself as you wait for your significant other. Yeah.
Thank you. Over to you, James.
A quick one on that is one. I believe speaking about relationships, it's something that we should have like a 3-hour event or something. But generally, a relationship, when you get into a romantic relationship, if you get into a romantic relationship, it tends to have phases. It's good to recognize the phases and to be intentional about them. Just a quick run through the phases. One will be the infatuation stage, where you met and you are hot about each other and don't want to even, if you stay a day without talking to each other, it's hell. The next one is the honeymoon phase, where things are cool. Now we are getting into the gist of things and everything. Then we get into the understanding stage, where now you understand your partner. You get to know them deeper than just their name and their career and what they aspire to be. After that, there's the building stage. Now, the understanding stage and the building stage sets the precedence to the rest of the relationship. If you don't define that relationship at that particular stage, at a later stage, the relationship will end up being meaningless, because the love aspect alone cannot hold the relationship. You have to have something that when everything is torn apart, there is still that one thing that you can look at and say, I'm here for them, they're here for me, we're here for each other. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Over to you, Gina.
James stated all those things. He just threw them there. I'm waiting for explanations on some of them, but we're wrapping up. So I'm kind of confused. But anywho, relationships, the advice that I'd give is, you see, there's just give me a minute. See, like there are people out here, like Leah said, you have to embrace your individuality first before you get into a relationship. But then there are ladies, or rather there are men, even men, they stick to a relationship to validate themselves. Like they cannot love themselves unless they're in a relationship. Like the other day when we read that quote that people are perceiving, like to be loved, you have to be in a relationship. So I back Leah up when she says, you have to embrace your individuality first. You have to know what makes you tick. You have to know what makes you happy, so that when you get into this relationship, you have your boundaries, and then that person, the other person, your partner has their boundaries. So you understand this is a clear line. Don't do this. This would annoy me. Don't do that. This would annoy me. It just makes things peaceful, basically. So yeah, just understand yourself before you go and try to control someone else, or you try to judge someone else for being who they are, or you end up being dependent on someone simply because you didn't take time to understand yourself. So yeah, that's basically what I have.
Thank you, Gina. And over to you, Prince, and then I'll wrap it up.
Okay. I think I'll direct my advice mostly to the men. So always put the toilet seat down. Never tell her to calm down.
I back you up on that one. Don't ever tell her to calm down.
But anyway, I kid. On the serious note is just for everyone to know that there's never going to be a perfect person you meet. Every person you meet will always have something that they're working on that's not yet there. And so don't chase perfection. And that being said, let's not have this cancel culture where if something goes wrong, you duck, then you look for a next one, then you realize there's another thing wrong, you duck. Let's be courageous men. Let's be leaders. Let's be bold. Let's be decisive. If you find someone that you like and who fulfills a vast majority of the things that you look for in a partner, then love them deeply and unconditionally, and be ready to go through the ups and downs with them. Persevere, make it work. No one said it was ever going to be easy. And as young people, we have to realize that relationships need work, they need patience, and they take time. And the simple fact that things are not right doesn't mean you jump ship. Though there is a fine balance between keeping the hope alive and being in a toxic space. So I think one has to be conscious of what they look for in a relationship so that they know these are my limits, this is what I can't stand. And that is informed by what Leah and Gina had talked about. Know yourself, know what you stand for, know what you're looking for, and fight for your love. It's not going to be easy, but fight for it.
That's cute.
Those are my 2 cents, and I'm looking forward to the next podcast. And give us comments, guys. We really want to know what you guys think about some of the questions that we've been grappling with. We want to learn from you too. So
yeah, that's amazing, Prince. Thank you so much, all of you guys, for coming, for joining us. I think what everybody might have picked up from our conversations is that we have known each other for more than 2 years. Some of us, like, we have relationships personally within the team. So I'm really grateful that you guys had our call and you came in and you were so gracious. Some of you were like, just send me the questions, tell me which day. So we're really, really, really grateful that we have friends like you who can show up and show out. So thank you so much for that. To wrap it up, I'm just going to finish with my advice would be, if somebody shows you who they are, best believe that is who they are. So that's something I had from Oprah, and I've had her mention it so many times. Like, just believe what somebody shows you they are. If they show you they're not consistent, believe they're not consistent and make a decision to actually get out of that relationship. If somebody shows you they're consistent, they're present, they're growing, or they're including you in their growth and you are included in their own as well, you can trust that and move with that. But trust whatever somebody shows you that they are through their actions. Trust whatever they say trust whatever they show you, so that you don't end up in situations where you're like, oh, but I thought. No, just trust whatever they are doing, because actions do speak louder than words. So thank you. I think that's a wrap, Leah.
Thanks for having us. It's been super fun.
Thank you.
Yeah, grateful
I hope
to
you
have
guys
been part of
haven't
the
burned
experience.
Sana.
No, we're still.
Yeah.
We've come clean. Figuring
Okay,
it out
and
as we
if you-
go.
Yeah,
I believe
and
these
if
are
you're in a
conversations that
relationship,
really needs.
uh-huh.
Yeah, these are conversations that really needs a longer time.
Yeah.
Or like
To really
half-
unpack everything.
Mhm.
Every single question here is a podcast, guys. You can create content like that. You have a podcast titled per question.
All right,
From
guys,
the
thank you
questions,
so much. Uh-huh.
from the questions that were sent, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those are 7 podcast episodes.
James, kutuanika nayo, and how do you counting? My God. Okay, guys, let's not ban past that.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you follow us on all our pages. We are FIO, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and also please make sure to follow us and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also in all other podcast platforms from Spotify to Apple iTunes. So thank you so much and see you next time. Bye.